Thank you guys for coming today to this, our second installment of The Build. And for those of you all that missed the first one we did back in January, this is our second quarter installment of The Build. And we wanted to start this where we get an opportunity to not just do kind of a preaching thing, where we just do a talking thing, where we're sitting down with thought leaders from various disciplines who are men and women of faith who are going to talk to us about how their life in Christ has impacted their life in their professional ranks, so that we can kind of hear how it is that Jesus has impacted their world and caused them to be able to be successful at it, what it is that they do, what they do. And today our guest is Bryan Cameron. Bryan earned his bachelor's degree in economics from UC Davis in 1980. He just turned, I don't think he minds if I tell you his age, he just turned 68. His birthday's April 9th. He's 2 days after me. Hey. And he got an MBA from Stanford Graduate School of Business in 1983. Bryan currently serves as the founder and chairman of the Bryan Cameron Education Foundation, a private family foundation established in 2015 on the principle of making a difference by investing in young people's education. He previously served as the director of equity research at the San Francisco investment firm Dodge & Cox, which manages, as of now, $400 billion in assets. In 2019, Bryan generously gave the gift of $12.5 million to start the Cameron Institute, a program that helps student athletes with assistance in focusing on skills they need for a successful future. One of those student athletes is the current Heisman Trophy winner in Mendoza. And he's the past president of the Bears Backers, the Athletic Development Office of the University of California, Berkeley, and currently serves on the board of Institute of Government Studies at the university. He also serves on the Chancellor's Advisory Board of the University of California, Davis, and the board of the Lucille Packard Children's Hospital Foundation in Palo Alto, California, and the board of the Church of the Pioneers Foundation in Menlo Church in Menlo Park, California. Bryan considers himself most fortunate to be surrounded by a wonderful family and friends. Of course, I'm the most wonderful. And I'm saying that for you guys' benefit. And many who call him Bear due to his devotion to Cal. And when not at Cal athletic events, his interests are primarily reading, politics, travel, and, of course, golf. Would you guys please welcome my good friend, Bryan Bear Cameron.
Thank you. Come on in, have a seat. Come on in.
Well,
very kind introduction. Can I just say a few opening remarks?
Yes, you can. Uh-oh, here we go.
Yeah. First of all, really a privilege to be here. I've heard great things about Destiny over many years, well before I knew Troy, and this morning I am a first-time visitor. I guess I'm in the 1 out of 5. I don't mind standing. So there you go. But my experience so far this morning only confirms what I've heard. Just wonderful people, incredible music and musicians. And I'd have to tell you, just have great leadership. I've gotten to know Troy and Angela over the last 5 years or so, and just incredible in their ministry, but even better as people. So your church is very fortunate, from my perspective, to have as your leadership Troy and his lovely wife, Angela. So thank you for having me today.
Thanks, man. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Well, we want to jump right in with you. You spent 40 years at Dodge & Cox, and as I mentioned in my introduction of you, it manages $400 billion in managing assets. You got there after, I guess, coming out of Stanford. You know, tell us a bit about what managing a place like that is, being a manager of research, and what is that kind of job like?
Sure. So I think anybody who's contemplating career paths or has one of the best jobs or careers are ones that match your best skills and your most highlighted interests. For me, that was going to be becoming an NFL quarterback. That's clearly where I had my greatest interests. But about that time, there was a guy named Aaron Rodgers who was playing at Cal, and he had a bit more skill than I did. So the skill and interest part, I only had half the equation. So, but what did work out for me was a career in finance, and with a firm that really matched my values and way of approaching the investment business. So I think really, as I explored different careers and beyond sports, it was probably going to be law or business. I decided business, and within business, investing other people's money, which clearly is important to them. You always wanted to be aware that the assets you're managing, $400 billion, that's a lot of money, but there are literally thousands or tens of thousands of people behind that, and so you wanted to be good stewards of their money and achieve their financial returns. So long story short, it was just a good match between my interests, my skills. We'll talk a little bit about preparing for a career, but I think education is absolutely at the core of that. So when you're counseling young people, I would encourage you to just really value the educational opportunities wherever that might lead them.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned education. I mean, obviously, you got into business. You're climbing this mountain. You're at Dodge and Cox. But there's a point now where you're clearly doing well there, but there's this inflection point where you shifted and you start to have this moment where you decide to invest $12.5, $13 million into starting the Institute. What was the inflection point where you decided to kind of channel this professional success into, this personal legacy of service now?
Yeah, so I'm going to have a little preview before I answer that question directly, and that's a little bit about my philosophy, which I borrowed actually from one of the lead pastors at Menlo Church, where I attend regularly, like every week for 40 years or something, 45 years. Walt Gerber, so some of you may have known him, but he was talking about giving and philanthropy at one point, and he framed it all with the principles of time, talent, and treasure. So everybody in this room is a philanthropist. There is no excuse because everybody has some measure of time, talent, and treasure. For me, when I was working, I didn't have a lot of time, so you wouldn't see me at places, a little bit, but you wouldn't see me regularly at places where it required a lot of time. Those who know me know I have very little talent, so that left treasure. And as my life journey went, a fair amount of treasure. And so I think it's absolutely biblical principle to share and give treasure. And the Bible talks about tithing and whatnot. So for me, that was check writing to worthy organizations. And I would encourage anybody to identify worthy organizations. And it's really between you and the Lord as to where you think you're going to give your money. Certainly Destiny Church would be one great opportunity, but there are many others in the community, and I'd encourage you to find ones that really resonate with you and that are doing good work. So it was check writing for quite a few decades, but it got to a point later in my career, to get to Troy's question, where really starting something, I never thought I'd be an entrepreneur, much less a social entrepreneur, but it came about that way. So I earned the resources, or my career was around investing in stocks, but I thought, what if I invested in people, and particularly through education? And so that led to the Bryan Cameron Education Foundation. And really the thought there was build an organization that was going to invest in these young people through a 4-year scholarship to any college that they were admitted. And through that, really hoping and trusting that they'd make an impact with their life professionally and personally. So that's what Bryan Cameron Education Foundation is all about. This next weekend in San Francisco, we'll celebrate our 10th year. So we have 15 in each class. That's 150 kids. And Well, I think you will see some of these folks later in life. They really are making an impact. Incredible group of young people. Give me great hope for the future. So that's what that one's all about. And the other one that Troy referred to was athletics is near and dear to my heart, particularly at the University of California, Berkeley, just 20 miles or so north from here, as you know. But the Cameron Institute, student athletic experience in college, and some of you either have had it or know people, it's very, very time consuming. And they put their whole life into being really good at sports, and that's a worthy endeavor. But and there's a lot of great lessons learned in college athletics, work ethic, teamwork, leadership, perseverance, how to win, how to lose. Etc. But it crowds out, the amount of time crowds out other worthy endeavors. Depends on the student athlete. Could be academics, could be social life, could be, almost in all cases, preparation for the rest of their life. They think they're going to make it in the NFL, and 1% of the kids end up with any opportunity there in football, and it's even less in other sports. So they need to prepare for life, but they really weren't. And so the idea behind the Cameron Institute was to really invest, that word again, in student athletes towards the comprehensive development. So when they leave Cal, it's after 4 or 5 years, it's instead of, I don't know what I'm going to do with the rest of my life, the goal is each and every young person, man and woman, would leave and say, okay, sports is over, but now I have a really good plan for the rest of my life. I'm ready to go. So it's career development, it's leadership, it's community service, and performance-related mental health. Those are the pillars for that. So the top line is really invest in people. And back to my original statement, everybody in this room, I can tell by your faces and the people you are, you have the ability through time, talent, and treasure to do exactly that.
That's good. That's good. Now, let's go back a little bit. I think, we were driving somewhere and asked, where did this come from? Talk about your mom.
Happy to do that. Mom was part of my life for all of my years, obviously, but she lived 88 years, passed away 5.5 years ago. But if I had to say, well, who is the foundational person for who I am today, that would be my mom. And that's probably true for a lot of people not in this room, because they're not with their mom. The moms are here in the room, and also the dads. Don't mean to neglect them. But parenting is, I assume, challenging. I've never been a parent, but I see what great parenting looks like. In the case of my mom, it was value of education, treat other people with kindness and respect, and give back to community or family and friends. Those were principles that I grew up with, courtesy of my mom and my dad. And that's probably where a lot of your own values came from, and hopefully those are the types of things you're passing on to your kids. No greater investment that you're making than that in your children.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, because that was the thing that stood out to me. She seemed to be the one that put that educational side in you.
Yeah, we grew up comfortably, but there weren't going to be resources there to take it easy the rest of my life. It was going to come through education, and that I think is an open pathway for most everybody in our country, and we're very fortunate to have that.
So you're sitting down, you're, I guess, at a lunch with the Cal athletic director. Talk about this napkin story, because I think there's a principle in there around not missing moments that I'd like the congregation to hear.
So I had long had a vision for what's called the Cameron Institute, this organization up at Cal to support student athletes, but the timing wasn't right for various reasons. So as Jim Knowlton, who became the athletic director at Cal maybe 7-8 years ago now, has since retired, but he wanted to meet people that were heavily involved as donors or otherwise. And as he tells the story, we got about 2 minutes into the conversation when I blurted out, I'm known to be sort of forward or direct, and apparently I said something to the effect, we're not doing enough to support our student athletes. And so he got out pen and paper and said, wow, that's quite a statement. Tell me what you mean. Well, after that conversation, I was flying to watch a football game, Cal against BYU, I think, and state of Utah, and I didn't have any paper with me, but I said, well, I'm thinking about it. I'm going to write out the design of the Cameron Institute, and I wrote it on the back of a napkin, and it's a miracle when anybody can read my handwriting on regular paper, but there is a copy of that napkin framed in the athletic director's office, and that became sort of the core of the Cameron Institute. Principle behind it is, I suppose, if you have a dream, if you have an idea, just get going on it. It doesn't have to be perfect. My old boss, John Gunn, kept telling us over and over again, the enemy of a good plan is the perfect plan. So don't think you have to have it all figured out. Really start with the back of a napkin and see where it goes. And this one helps 900 student athletes at Cal every year. It's a staff of 10 to 12, fabulous leadership. And so I had only the vision, the resources, the rest of it is done by other people, which is another principle here is you're going to end up working with other people when you do anything good. Anybody in this room is fully capable of doing good things alone, but it'll turn out a whole lot better if you work with other people.
That's good. That's good. You know, when I was preparing for today and interviewing you, I thought about that moment in Moses' life. You know, bushes burned all the time in the desert, church. But in the scriptures, it says that Moses turned aside to see this particular bush. And there are moments that God will drop something in your heart and you need to turn aside. Are you tracking with me? That there are ideas that God will periodically drop into your heart, and there are moments where you have to just pause and write it on the back of a napkin. And oftentimes I feel like we miss moments with God because we didn't pause and write it on the back of a napkin. And I just want to challenge you. Oftentimes people will say, pray for me, Pastor. I'm really believing God wants me to start a business. I'm really believing that God wants me to do such and such. And I often will say, well, what have you done about that? Well, I'm just, waiting for this thing to happen or that thing to happen. And I want to challenge you with the Moses thing. Have you turned aside? Have you written it on the back of a napkin? Have you done the next thing? And so when I read, a bit of his story and saw that he had written it on the back of a napkin, that's the principle I really want you to catch, that you've got to take that next step. And so thank you so much for sharing that piece. Now, there's something about you focusing on the holistic development of student athletes, preparing them for life after cheering stoppers. I wanted to find out this bit, in the world of finance, you looked at data and market trends. Now, as you're working in the Cameron Institute, you're looking at character and human potential. What have you found to be high growth traits in people that are more valuable than any stock or asset class? What is it that you see in people?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I got involved in the hiring of the leadership, obviously, for both the Education Foundation and also the Cameron Institute up at Cal, and then obviously I was involved in that through hiring at Dodge and Cox and whatnot. And a lot of people will hire off of resumes in what have you done and have you had relevant experiences, and I wouldn't dismiss that as somewhat important, but that to me was the secondary thing. I looked for the character of the person, and by that I mean, do they have the intelligence, do they have the motivation, do they have the enthusiasm to do what needs to be done here, do they have the intellectual curiosity, the creativity? These are personal characteristics which may or may not show up on your resume. They probably have in terms of some of the achievements that are on your resume, but I think the best hires are those that, or the best people to select hires. It doesn't have to be a job, it could be doing something else, but really look at the character of the person broadly defined and the specific characteristics that you're looking for. People can learn how to do a specific job, but they are who they are in terms of the characteristics, and that ends up to be really critical to the success. Education Foundation is led by somebody who had been a friend of mine for, since she was in college, and but it was 15 years later. She had married, had 3 kids, was looking to go back in the workforce. I was thinking about, I want to invest in education, and how are we going to do it? And first, number one thing in an organization is, well, there are really 3 things, and maybe I'll talk about that later, but one of them is find great leadership. She had 0 experience running a nonprofit. She had 0 experience sort of identifying and leading a team of people. That wasn't that important to me. What she had was all those other characteristics that I mentioned, and she has done incredible work with this foundation for 10 years. She'll be honored for that next weekend, so I'm sort of top of mind how important she's been and the gifts that she's bringing. So I guess the moral of the story is, don't feel like you have to have a resume to make a difference. Find people that are looking for who you are in terms of your characteristics that I'm sure are be incredibly valuable to certain endeavors, whether they be job-related or volunteer-related or any other endeavor that you're part of, because that's what I look for.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, you've been in, in a high-stakes world. I mean, and, let's not play any games here. I mean, in the high-stakes world of finance, it's dog eat dog. How have you been able to navigate that world, and still maintain your faith in Christ? How has that internal compass you have, how have you been able to navigate those pressures in that industry without losing sight of your values?
Yeah, good question. I guess I'd start that answer was life in a lot of endeavors in business or politics or sports or all these places. I think we're a little bit shaped by movies or television, which who's going to be the bad guy in a 1-hour TV show? It's probably going to be the business guy, right? Or the CEO who's
the lawyer
doing terrible things. Yeah, lawyers. So they get more than their share of profiling. Made for entertainment, you have to have the good guys and the bad guys, and the bad guys are often caricatured or profiled as business people. My experience is totally different. 99% plus of the people are really working hard. They care about their customers. They care about their employees, and that may or may not be your own experience, but it was mine. So I'd start there by saying, don't fear going into a life in a lot of different endeavors because you don't think you fit there as a Christian. That's really not been my experience at all. I think most people, whether they're Christian or not, are actually ethical in what they're doing. Having said all that, and Troy said, let's not pull any punches here, there are some pressures that are real. I took the liberty of writing a few of them down to make sure. There's pressure to make money. There's pressure to please your boss or your customers. There's pressure to get things done on time. There's pressure to conform or agree with other people. There's pressure to prioritize your work over your faith or your family. Any of those sound familiar? Yeah, okay, thought so. So we can't ignore that, but the advice I'd say is, really Christian principles, do the right thing. If you're at an inflection point, or I could go this way or that way, just do the right thing. And most of us know what that is, right? If you're presented with a multiple choice A, B, C, D, or all of the above, you would know how to answer that and get it right if the perspective is do the right thing. Second thing I'd say is resist the peer pressure. Be willing to be independent. That's hard to do if your boss wanting to go a different direction. I'd say be independent diplomatically. Try not to call your boss a 4-letter word or something. Probably not good for career development. So, I don't want anybody walking in their office tomorrow and getting into a massive argument. The guy speaking at church yesterday told me to do that. No. But I would, peer pressure, whether it's at school or in a job or in a family or community, it happens all over the place. And I think God blessed us with a mind and the ability to reason and think. And so do your own reasoning and thinking, be independent, and feel free. A really good organization allows you to share your opinion, your thought, as long as it's well reasoned and and done diplomatically. So I would do that, but part of the next thing may seem to contradict a little bit, and that's be prepared for the consequences to any of these things. If you're independent in the sense of putting your own values and your faith ahead of work, which I think is the right thing to do in the sense of decision making or other inflection points there, there could very well be serious consequences. And a lot of people think the worst thing in life would be to lose your job. That is not the worst thing in life. The worst thing in life would be to have compromises with your faith or your priority with your family. And so it's hard to do, but don't fall into the trap of making work your God or anything else your God. There's only one God. And so them first, and I think very scriptural to, your priorities within God's framework really start with your family and friends. So don't compromise those types of things for the sake of your work. I think if you look in yourself in the mirror at the end of your life, you'll be happy if you did the right thing and if you put God first in all circumstances.
That's great. Thanks, Brian. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to shift gears. So you and I were scheduled to play golf. I think it was a Friday. And so I called you and I said, hey, we're playing in the morning. Angela wants to cook for us later that evening. Why don't we plan to play and come on over? And you said, hey, buddy, sorry, I can't. Why don't you meet me at the Oakland A's owner's box?
The A's might not be very popular, so keep going with this story.
Yeah. Double apology, because for the last several months, I've been operating under an NDA. I've been negotiating under an NDA.
This is me talking.
Yeah, because today it's official. I just was named. The deal's, the ink is done. I am now one of the co-owners of the Baltimore Orioles. That Friday, they'll be in town. So rather than us having dinner at your house, why don't you come on over and meet me and some other friends? We're going to be kind of celebrating a little bit in the hapless Oakland A's owner's box. And I was like, guys, you can attest to this. This is so bare. Yeah, we'd love to do that, but wow. I think we would all here at Destiny love to hear, how does this happen? How did this opportunity come about for you to become one of the part owners of the new Baltimore Orioles ownership group?
Well, I'd be happy to share that story, although I think Troy's a little more impressed with it than I am. And some of these people were thinking I had something valuable to say, or I was somewhat smart before you told that story. Who on earth would turn down a home-cooked meal from Angela to go to a ball game? I mean, that just wasn't real smart on my part, but I had made a previous commitment, so there was the lame excuse I had. But that opportunity really came about thinking towards the end of when I retired, which was 4.5 years ago. From Dodge and Cox, I needed something else to do. A lot of people say, well, I'm just going to play more golf. And if you've watched me play golf, my friends would say, okay, what's plan B? Because, Troy beats me every time. Thank you, by the way, to the mutual friends of Troy, Angela, and myself that have joined us today. I play golf with all them, and they can also attest that I needed something else to do. So put some feelers out through, there are all sorts of brokers who deal in sports franchises, had feelers out. There are 2 or 3 things we looked at, and it didn't work out for one reason or another. But the Orioles opportunity came up, and, my first thing, this might be a principle. I said, no, that's not Baltimore. I've been to Baltimore about 3 times in my life, and that's 3,000 miles away. What am I doing being a part owner of that? But as the conversation went on with the lead owner, David Rubenstein, who had just bought the team and was looking to put together a consortium of people to build out the ownership group, but really we had a lot in common, clear interest in philanthropy, investing in the community through a sports network. The team he was building was mostly finance people, so I knew beyond baseball, at least I'd have something to talk about with all these people. And The team was really good, coming off playoff performance. So the stars started to align, and my initial impression of an opportunity, which was, man, that doesn't seem like me, upon further investigation, really looked like a good match. And my experience has been really, really good. The people, the team, the players, the managers, the fans. It's really a fun community, and you can travel around the country and experience it with friends. So that's all worked out well. But if you like sports, you also get into it and recognize at the college level or the pro, it's really a business now, and so that's a little bit disappointing. It's not like the game you played when you were a 10-year-old boy or something. The game of baseball, it's really a business, and don't want to finish on a sour note, but if you like baseball, watch it this year. There's likely to be a lockout or a strike coming as both the owners and the players fight about money. First time in history that's happened, but that's coming in baseball.
So, okay, when we read about, we sports fans, when we read about like Magic Johnson and these guys buying the Dodgers, this is kind of an invitation thing. You have to be invited to even make these types of purchases.
There's serious, the interview process, not only by the ownership group, but Major League Baseball wants to learn about every day you ever spent on Earth. The organization's kind of crazy that way. So they're trying to keep bad characters out. Somehow I slipped under the radar.
Wow.
But there is a process, and I don't know. Again, going back to principles, if that's really your thing, don't think like, I got to have so much money to buy a team. There are other ways to get involved, and just show up and start doing things, and one thing leads to another. Has been my experience in life.
Wow. Well, we're going to wrap up. We've got a lot of leaders in the room. We have a lot of leaders online, and people who are entrepreneurs. When you think back to your days in Stanford, your days at Cal Davis, what have been maybe your top 3 governing business principles that you would share with emerging leaders? I know that I personally invited some 20-somethings, some 30-somethings to come into the room. What have been maybe your top 3 business principles that you've governed yourself by? And we'll close with that.
Okay, and I wrote a few of these down. Big shock. Troy's well prepared and wants to well prepare his guests, so had time to think about it, which I really appreciate. So I'll keep my comments to 3. But first would be integrate your faith into your job and your career, or in anything you do. I think faith is not meant to be 2 hours on Sunday morning. It's meant to be 24/7. And now, when talking about careers and business principles, I'm very clear. This doesn't necessarily mean that you're verbally sharing the gospel when you walk in the front door. You're paid to do a certain job, but not to be in ministry in that sort of a sense. So bringing your faith into your work doesn't necessarily mean your job is now to be a pastor or something. What it means to me is, number one, 3 things. Number one, do a great job at what you're doing. These are all towards being a witness in your work. I'll never forget, a woman came to Menlo Church probably 20 years ago now. She was a bus driver, and the topic was work and faith. She was a bus driver in San Francisco, African-American woman, biggest smile, bigger heart, and more energy than you know what to do with. Anybody know anybody like that? Yeah. So she talked about her job, and you would think after listening to her for 5 minutes that driving a bus in San Francisco, and you can imagine all the challenges and annoyances of that, you would have thought that she had the job being, I don't know, running Disneyland or being an NFL quarterback or something. She just thought that was the greatest, and that was her ministry, to meet people, to help people, to do this. So do a great job no matter what you're doing. Be true to your values. People are watching you all the time, and if they identify as a Christian, the biggest turnoff is your actions are inconsistent with the perception of faith. So be true to your values. And then finally, help other people in their work. People are really going to respect that. It could be somebody challenging in their job, somebody having a hard time at home, somebody that needs a break, and I take your shift for you. It would be an incredible gift to some people that you're helping. So that's only number one, Troy. Sorry, but integrate faith with your job and career. Second principle is be real clear on the following two things, especially if you're starting an organization. What is the mission of the business, and what is the role of my job? So at Dodge & Cox, the mission of the business was to serve our clients by investing in great investment portfolios and service them with their investment needs. My job as the director of investment research was to work with our team towards finding great individual investments and then meeting with clients to answer their questions and help them with their investment needs. Point of the story would be at the end of every day, literally, you should be able to leave your job, walk out the door, go down the elevator, whatever it is, and say, did I do something to help the mission of the organization and critical to my job? And so know what they are and then see if your actions during the course of the day are consistent with that. And then the final thing would be establish priorities and focus on them. A lot of people think success is getting their a daily job or whatever, is to get their inbox into their outbox or answer every email that comes in. A lot of busy work in that. Instead, what are the most important things? Could be if you're a contractor, building that building or that house. If you're again, the bus driver, getting your people from A to B. In my case, it was, are we identifying really good investments during the course of the day? So it's amazing how many days towards the end of it, if I thought of it at 4 or 5 o'clock, it's like, man, I've just been busy work, this meeting, that thing, emails, fire drills. What did I do to really advance the mission of the organization? And if it came back not very much, well, then I needed to stay an hour or two later and get it done. So those would be the three things. Again, integrate your faith with your job or your career, be real clear as to the mission and your job within the mission, and then establish priorities and make sure you're paying as much or more attention to those as all the busy work stuff.
Can we put our hands together for Mr. Bryan Cameron? Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
You've been very kind. Thanks again for the invitation. We only got through about 1/10 of the stories that Troy and I have together. He neglected to mention how we really met and connected. You want to share that story?
We So my first day at Menlo, this was back in November when they hired me. They brought me up and they said, when you're not studying your scripture, what is it that you like to do on your off time? Well, I'll give you guys one guess what my answer was. And so
he did that with you all too.
Yeah. And so his ears perked up, and then a month later I got in my email an invitation to play golf. And so Bryan graciously invited me out to play golf with him, and we became fast friends on the golf course, and I've been beating his brains out ever since.
Sadly, that's true. So what can I say?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
Thank you all for your attendance and support today.
Absolutely. Come on, let's all stand together. Absolutely.